Hello my friends and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Adrian. I take photos of wildlife and I've created this channel to help you become a better wildlife photographer. We're not going to talk about gear or settings or Lightroom very much because I don't want you to be a good gear owner or setting setter or Lightroom hacker. I want you to be a skilled wildlife photographer. So those are the sorts of things we'll be focusing on here. If you're into that kind of thing, like, subscribe, it helps us a lot and it'll help you a lot. Do you like my new intro? I like it. Alright, I am, I'm gonna try not to yell. I'm really hyped up about doing this series because in this series, it's a series where we're gonna review people's portfolios, their Instagram accounts, just bodies of work. And to start it off, I'm gonna give you an introduction of critiquing, how to do a good critique, and specifically like what a critique is not, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about critiquing, and I think a lot of people come at it in this mindset that it's pointing out all the things that are wrong with somebody's work, and that's kind of it. And that's not very helpful, so I don't know, we're not gonna do that because it's not helping nobody. Alright, so why are we going through a series of critiques? How does watching me critique somebody else help you? Through example, I'm gonna show you how I personally critique people, not just for their benefit, but for my benefit and for your benefit. So you can critique other people for your own benefit. Likewise, you can also obviously critique yourself for your own benefit. What I'm really going to be teaching you is how to critically I'm going to teach you how to critically ponder on photos so you can likewise critically ponder on yourself. So today we're going to be critiquing Caleb Hoover. Go follow him on Instagram, links below. His work is amazing. I really just get lost looking in his photos, looking at his photos. It's the kind of work that the more you look at it, the more you just freaking love it. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about what critiquing is, what critiquing isn't. Critiquing needs to come from a standpoint of always being helpful to the person being critiqued. It is not to just be critical and point out flaws. You have to be helpful. If you're not being helpful, you're not critiquing, you're just being an asshole. Number two, when you are critiquing work, you have to kind of prioritize the most important things, the biggest things that are gonna benefit the person you're critiquing. It's not time to get into all the nitty-gritties, because if you look at a body of work, you can point out with inexperienced photographer, a very experienced photographer, you could probably point out 100 things that's wrong with their work. Easy. We can't focus on 100 things. Don't do that. Don't do it to yourself. Don't do it to other people. Focus on maybe the 1 to 3 biggest things, the things that are going to have the biggest impact on helping this person. And lastly, really take into consideration the person's current body of work. If you see this person, like Caleb we're about to review, all of his work is color photography. So it would just be stupid of me to say, oh, you're doing all color photography, you should do black and white, that'll help you. Obviously, he doesn't want to do black and white. If he wanted to do black and white, he'd do it. You can see by the work he's done that he's a skilled enough photographer that if he wanted to do black and white, he'd do it. So I'm not going to suggest that. As a critiquer, you ain't there to derail people and get them going off in like some other direction that they're clearly not into. What you need to do is you need to look at the stuff they do seem to be into, they are already doing, and you need to tell them or help them come up with ways to enhance what they're already doing. The last thing I want to say is a critique is going to go much better for you and the person you're helping. When you look at an entire body of work, like 10 plus images, You get a real feel for the direction this person is going in their photography, repetitive strengths and repetitive weaknesses. Getting real slobbery. And with that being said, we're gonna segue on over to looking at Caleb's work. Okay, so right off the bat, we as a critiquer are going to look at the full body of work. So that is what I am doing. We look for reoccurring themes, reoccurring strengths, reoccurring weaknesses. So right off the bat, we can see he's got a lot of portraits. They're really well done portraits. I'm not seeing anything terrible. I'm not seeing anything that's jumping out at me as like, oh, that's a mistake. Oh, that could have been better. The portraits they're outstanding. He's one of the best portrait photographers I've ever seen, honestly. But here's why, and this is an important thing to do. When you're critiquing, you want to point out what people are doing perhaps wrong, yes, but also what they're doing right. And you want to reinforce that it's good, it's special, it's unique to them. His portraits are very unique to them. So with his work, you can see he has these ultra creamy foregrounds and backgrounds. It really gives his stuff an extra edge and helps set him apart, because a lot of photographers don't get this smooth of backgrounds and foregrounds. He also really pays attention to his backgrounds and foregrounds and makes sure that they're interacting with his subjects in very interesting ways. He really takes these portraits that could be very dull otherwise, like just nothing more than just an animal sitting there being an animal. But in so many of these shots, the lighting in the background makes it very beautiful and atmospheric, and he uses a foreground to sort of show the environment, yes, but it kind of makes you feel like you're peeking into this animal's world. You're seeing something a little hidden and obscured from what you would normally see. It's really beautiful. It adds mystery. I mean, look at this deer. Look, that's a mysterious deer right there. So with the portraiture, he's really fucking doing it. He's doing a great job. Love it, keep it up. Now he does have a lot of portraits, and that's clearly something he excels at, something he likes. But I do see other types of work in here. He's got some abstract works that are very nice. And then he does have a few photos of animals together actually interacting. I would say the biggest #1 thing that would help his portfolio and help him grow as a photographer would be to focus more on shooting animals interacting with other animals. I do understand a lot of these birds kind of live more solitary lives. They may not interact with each other too much, but I would say he's banked so many shots, amazing portrait shots, that if you were to take my advice, I would say really begin to prioritize that. So if I were him, what I would do to achieve this is I would sit down and I'd really think about the birds that already live in groups. If they're already in groups, I have a higher chance of seeing them interact with one another. So birds often feed most in the mornings and in the evenings. Around me, it's typically most in the mornings. So shoot more of these particular birds that live in groups in the morning when they're feeding. Also, I need to think, when are they breeding? When are they nesting? When do they have babies? What kind of interactions can come out of that? Do they have breeding behaviors? I need to hyper focus on those moments and really make sure I get those shots this year, this season, whenever. Lastly, I want to say his abstract shots are really good, and it's another thing, he does enough of them to show me he really knows what he's about when it comes to abstract photography. He's got really interesting work, and it's another thing that I would say really helps set him apart from other wildlife photographers. His super creamy backgrounds, use of foreground and background in his portraiture, and these abstract shots. There's not a lot of them, but I feel like they really make a statement. These two things combined, I feel like those are like his secret spices, the secret recipe that makes his wildlife photography what it is. I wonder, I don't know, I haven't talked to him about it, but I wonder if mayhaps he kind of puts it on the back burner. He doesn't always have getting abstract shots front of mind when he's out there shooting, and I think perhaps maybe he just kind of forgets to look for the abstract shot when he's out there. Because I think if he kept it top of mind, he'd have a little bit more of them because he's clearly very skilled at it and he must enjoy it. So my suggestion there is keep those abstract shots top of mind because I want to see more of those. Those are really something that you do special that I ain't seen nobody else doing like that. My very, very last thing I would say is your editing is very soft and subtle in almost all of your photos. In a couple of your shots, the editing is a little more heavy-handed than it is in the rest of your work. So it makes those shots stick out a little bit and look a little bit off. Not only that, some of them are a little overdone to the point where the editing is distracting. Usually a lot of darkness has been brought in. I believe this may be done with the burn and dodge tools in Photoshop. Here with the babies, it is really, really dark in some of these spots. And then in other spots, the dodge and burn, or the use of these highlights and shading in darkness, has led the eye kind of in a direction that the photo doesn't lead the eye, if that makes sense. My eye wants to go this way, downward, because of the way the bird's whole body is going in the direction the bird is looking in. But because of the editing, the shading that has been brought in, the highlight that may have been brought in, my eye actually goes up this way. It's being brought away from the bird, away from the direction the bird is looking. That's just a couple examples. There are a few more that are sort of like this. It's not a hugely reoccurring theme in his body of work. It's not a major concern I would say he should have, but just something to be mindful of. And that is it. That pretty much wraps up my analysis and critique of Caleb Hoover's work. So remember that the things we just went through with this guy's work is things you can do with your own work, but it's also a really helpful thing for you to do. Go through and do a critique of the work that a photographer you admire has done. Maybe a photographer you want to emulate, because there's kind of a big difference between saying going to Caleb's work and saying like, wow, I want to be a photographer more like Caleb. I want to have a style more like his. And then you proceed to just kind of take a quick look up and down and you're like, well, he does a lot of bird portraits. I'll do a lot of bird portraits and that'll make me like Caleb. It's not going to make you like Caleb because we already discovered through a deep analysis of his work that the super creamy foregrounds and backgrounds in these very interesting portraits are what makes him him. So that would be the thing you need to emulate if you wanted to be more like him or take inspiration from him. And that's it for this video. If you want to send me your portfolio for a review on this channel, you can send me a link through my link in the description below. Again, remember, if you liked this video, if it helped you out, please like and leave a comment. Very new page and it helps a ton. Until I see you next time, that's all I have to say this time. Alright, bye.